I am making a box. It's gonna be a good box. Nice and square. Good lid on top. Looking nice and pretty. And to put in my box, I'm gonna make 4 ramekins. So then, I'm gonna have a box of ramekins. How I was going to do this wasn't exactly sure when I set out, so I just started drawing at full scale, which I think is the easiest way to do. So I grabbed a large ramekin that I have, traced that out, found the pieces of wood that I already had cut for the sides, measured those, and so I had a pretty solid reference to how big this box was going to be. Right there I'm slicing thin veneers of ambrosia maple. It's a pretty cool kind of maple. There's a beetle or a bug that infests the tree. You can see the little black dots in there, and that's where the beetle went through. And it reacts with the tree and creates these kind of tiger stripes on it. So I cut real thin strips, about 1/8 of an inch thick. I'm laying them out, make sure I get them in the right order just for presentation, and then I'm taping the back side of it. So the idea is that I'm going to glue this all together and create one visually appealing board for the cover of the box. This technique with the veneer is used quite a bit in furniture making, and it's a great way to extend the beautiful wood. So instead of using the whole board, you're just using thin slices of it, and you usually just glue it over a solid substrate. I'm ripping a thin band of this wood that I had glued together a while ago for another project. So it's 4 different kinds of wood: maple, cherry, black walnut, and maybe cedar in there. So the idea is that a nice thin strip, I'm going to cut a groove into the side of the box, and then that will be an inlay in the box, so adding just a nice little detail to it. I do this groove to all 4 sides, and then a thin bead of glue, and then just kind of tap the decorative inlay into the sides of the walls. I've cut all these side pieces about 2 inches long, so I'm just going to build them, put all the cuts and decorative pieces into it, then I'll trim it down later. Here's the ambrosia maple veneer sheet all glued up together. It's pretty thin. Luckily this is just a decorative box. It's not going to take a beating or be moved a lot. Otherwise I probably would have wanted to cut it a little bit thicker than that. It's a great hand plane I bought off Craigslist for I think $40. A elder gentleman was winding down his shop, and so I bought it off him, and it's been great. It was remarkable how sharp the tool was when I bought it. Usually buy things off Craigslist, and the first thing you have to do is sharpen them up. I'm on the router table now, cutting a rabbet on the back side, which is just a edge groove, and cutting that in. That will allow the floor of the box to fit into it. Now I'm cutting thin pieces of black walnut veneer, and that will be the inlay inside the box. It will add a nice decorative piece to it. It'll also help hold the box in place. Just like in the kitchen, in the wood shop, you really need to have an understanding of how production works, what steps to take first to get the best results. So here I have the groove cut, I have the rabbet cut, I have the inlay in, I have the pieces a little bit longer, I have the black walnut inlay double taped to the inside, and right now I'm cutting the 45-degree miter cut to create the box. This is probably the most stressful part of the project right now. All four pieces have to be exactly 45 degrees, and they all have to be exactly the same length. If they're off, then you'll see a crack, and the box won't line up square. Sometimes you just gotta appreciate the little things in life. A good sharp pencil, nothing better. So here you have a better sense of how the box is going to come together. Right now I'm just laying out the top, trying to find the best part of the pattern to use. With all the cuts made, I need to now take the black walnut inlays out and then glue in the bottom, and I'm going to glue in the top. So right there is the top is on, and then I have a thicker piece of maple that's going to fit into that rabbit that I cut earlier. And the way this box is made is I'm going to cut the top off. So by building the box as one piece and then cutting the top off, I can guarantee that the lid will fit perfectly on the bottom. With that said, I did not check the angle of my blade. I was off by 1 degree, so where there was an overcut on each corner, it was slightly off. Luckily the lid's offset so you visually can't see it, but I had to sand it down. So note to everyone, check the angle of your blade before you start cutting. And then the last thing to do is just figure out the height of the black walnut to insert. So I had to trim it down by a half an inch. Just wanted to keep the proportions together. It's more of just a visual thing. It was fitting nicely. And then here it is before it's finished. I think boxes are a great way to learn about woodworking. They're easy. This maybe took 2 days. Or you can make them as complicated as you want. You learn joinery, inlays, lots of different techniques. And I mean, once you learn how to build a box, I mean, a house is a box. Build this box. We're going to start building houses tomorrow. With the box done and drying, moving on to the clay ramekins. I'm using my reclaimed clay. So this has a mixture of brown and a white B mix, which creates this great texture to it. I rolled it out pretty thin. I would say it is 3/32, just below a 1/4 inch. And I wanted to use a different technique. I could throw these ramekins on the wheel like I usually do, but I wanted to try hand building for the first time. And this technique is used in Japanese teapots quite often. So if you want to see some amazing clay work, go to YouTube and search Japanese teapot building. It's very cool how they make the teapots. So here I'm just scuffing up the edges where the two pieces of clay are connecting. So scuffing it up and getting it nice and damp so that the edges and the seams stick together, and that's so I can work it. I'm going to put a very thin bead of clay in the edge on the inside of that ramekin and just make sure all the connection points are in full contact. Some time has passed. I'm at the studio now, so the ramekins have air dried. They were bisque fired, so now they are very hard, and I'm going to do the finish glaze on it. First thing to do is always put the wax or some sort of resistance on the bottom of each piece. This will prevent the glaze from sticking there and ultimately prevent your piece from sticking to the kiln once it's fired. So each of the ramekins will get a thin layer of that wax, And then I'm trying out this crackle glaze on the outside edge. I think it's going to have a nice finish. It's somewhat transparent, so you'll be able to see the marbling of the brown and the white B mix clay coming through. And then for the inside, I will dip it in a white glaze, so there'll be a nice contrast from the inside and the outside. You'll see that a lot of food clayware has a lighter inside, and it just helps accent the food. Just makes it look nicer. So my hope is to have the white glaze on the inside and on the very top edge of the ramekin. In order to do this, I need to control where the white glaze is going to go. So I'm using some painter's tape to go around the edge, which worked okay. I think I could have used maybe a rubber band, a thick rubber band. It would have been tighter around the edge and sealed off the white glaze, because I ended up having to go in and do some cleanup afterwards. So here's the birch white that I'm going to use for the inside. All these glazes are water-based, so you have to mix them up first. All the hard particles sink to the bottom. So just pouring the glaze in to each one, trying to be as careful as possible not to get the white glaze on the outside. Circling the glaze around and just pouring it into the next ramekin. So doing some cleanup here, scraping off any white that might have come in contact with the outside crackle glaze. And then I'm dipping my finger in the crackle glaze and applying some more. The glazes really are affected by how thick they are, so how many layers you put on. So you want to make sure that layering process is consistent all the way through. Otherwise you'll get variance and different results around your piece. So here it is, all finished. 4 ramekins. Came out really nice. There's the raw clay on the bottom, and then the crackle glaze on the edge. You can still see the marbling coming through. If you look really close, there's a nice little crackle that's all around it. And then the white birch on the inside, which still highlights the marbling. It was another fun project that I learned a lot from.